Hello, everyone. Welcome to Product for Product. It's Matt and Moshe here. Thanks for tuning in this week. We are excited to have Eddie Sawyers on the show to talk about ProdPad. ProdPad is a project management tool designed for road mapping, ideas, and feedback management. So welcome to the show, Eddie. Thanks for joining us today. Let's take a sec to introduce yourself before we dive in.
Hi, guys. Yeah, thank you for having me on. My name's Eddie. I'm the Chief Product Officer at a company called Tillo, which is based in the UK. And we are a global gift card network that connects companies and buyers that wish to use gift cards for many corporate needs.
Hi, Eddie.
Very cool.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you on the podcast. Yeah, the name sounds familiar before, but I wasn't sure where from. So now that you're saying also what you're doing, maybe that's where it was from. So I used to work in the past with the loyalty programs system, so maybe there is some integrations there.
Mm-hmm. You're definitely in that space.
Exactly. Very cool. And so today the topic of our episode is about ProdPad, like Matt mentioned. So tell us a bit about how long have you been using it? Were you also part of the decision makers that decided to use it, etc.?
Sure. So I've used ProdPad now for probably 4 to 5 years across 2 different companies. So, which is probably a little bit unique, maybe. But if I stick to Tillo and how we use it here, so I was the first product hire at Tillo. When I joined, I had a real problem I needed to solve, and that was that all of our ideas and feedback were all in very disparate places. I mean, I'm talking they're in emails, they're on spreadsheets, they're on post-it notes, maybe whiteboards somewhere, even in like Jira backlogs. So they were all over the place. So there was no centralized way to really visualize what we were planning to do. So that's when I started looking at what tools I could use to actually get a consolidated view of that and actually manage the process and put a bit of management into the process, really. And ProdPad was something that I had used before, and it was certainly up to the task that I needed.
So the reason you chose it was because you were familiar with it, or did you also look at the time at some other products and did some comparisons?
Yeah, I did look at some other products, and certainly I'd used various things like the good old Google Sheets is certainly an option that people do use, but I wanted something a bit more consolidated and a bit more functional, really, for what I needed. And I needed to get some of the management out of Jira. Our Jira backlog had a lot of very speculative ideas, which aren't really something that I wanted the dev team to be working on yet. It might not be real, and I needed somewhere else to do that. So I looked at things like Trello, used Trello a bit, looked at Asana, even Notion as well, various different tools to see how I could manage it. But it was the full functionality that drew me back into ProdPad, and it, as I say, is something I'd used before. So
yeah, that's always help. Yes. So tell us a bit about the focus there. You started from really managing all of the different ideas in one place. Is there a process in place where people are actually accessing it and giving you new ideas, and then you organize it? How does that work?
Yeah, so that's one of the selling points really for it. So how do you get buy-in from everyone in the company to put ideas to the product team? Sometimes that's, they don't know how to do that. And, everyone's got ideas, everyone's got different perspectives on life, right. And their roles in the company, they see different things. So how do you get those ideas in place? And having a centralized system that makes it super easy to add those ideas was definitely a selling point. So that's one of the things that ProdPad allows you to do. It allows you to add ideas very simply, and it's designed for product managers, but it's also designed for people who aren't product managers and they just need to do the one thing of adding an idea and adding it quickly. So it's very simple to do that. But they also have a good range of other options. So you can email ideas into ProdPad and it adds it in, or we use a Slack integration. So everyone in our company is on Slack, and they don't even need to go near the tool if they don't need to. They can still add their ideas into ProdPad.
So they do it through a Slack channel, and then ProdPad will read that through the Slack channel and create it inside.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. So do they have also abilities to vote or search for other ideas so they don't re-enter the same idea twice or stuff like that?
Yeah, so there's two things there which is quite useful. So it's not uncommon. I'm sure you've heard before that you can have people adding very similar ideas, and before you know it, you've got a massive list of very similar ideas to work through, which can be a headache for the poor product manager who has to sort through those.
Exactly.
But one of the clever things that they've got a recommendation engine where, as you're adding your idea, it does suggest other ideas that have been added that this might be about, which, could allow the person adding it to go, oh, actually, that's already in. I don't need to add a duplicate there.
That's slick.
But, it's not always obvious. So one of the other nice features that they have, which is really for the PM who's then reviewing these ideas, is that you can then relate them together, or you can effectively merge ideas together, marking one as a duplicate and pulling the relevant information from one into the other, so that if they do get through, you can still pull them all together so that you don't have to copy and paste all the information across. I was just going to say, back to your voting thing, yes, they also have a voting system, which can be very useful for ideas when you're looking to get lots of different viewpoints from inside your company. You can actually very quickly send a link out on Slack, and people can vote for it either by going into ProdPad or just on Slack itself. They can just add their quick vote.
And is that also open for external users, or do you use it only internally?
So what we do, you can actually post ideas out externally. So you can have a curated view. So you can mark a selection of your ideas for like external voting. And then you have a portal where you can get feedback on those ideas. So you could actually publish out to your customers, here's some ideas that we'd love to get your thought back on, and they can review those ideas and they can post feedback back of, and it's not just a simple yes or no. They can actually add some real detail into this would be great because, and that can be a very useful tool when you're trying to, decide on what would resonate with your customers. It can be very useful to do that.
Definitely. And that leads me to really the next thing about road mapping, because all of these feedback and ideas that are coming in internally and externally, eventually you really want them to be, to see how you prioritize between them and how they're affecting your future work or roadmap. And so first of all, how is that working in ProdPad? How is it?
In terms of like what some of the tools that ProdPad have, obviously you've got the voting system that we talked about, but it's not always a popularity contest, is it? So what they also have is that on an idea level and also on a roadmap level, you can add some weighting and scoring to those ideas. So this very simple effort versus value kind of matrix on each one to help you then visualize, because then you can visualize in ProdPad, where your quick wins might be, where the ones which will be a bit more effort and a bit more time might be. And you can do that on just an individual idea level, but you can also bring that up to like the roadmap level, where it might be a real, a proper theme of what you're trying to achieve, but you can still add that kind of priority scoring to that, so that you can have a look at that and use that as one way of prioritizing what you're going to do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for, because just people saying that they want something doesn't really mean that there is value in it.
Right.
So,
Yep.
so it's important that you could do something like that. But I was still always wondering about this, whether this value that you associate with a request or with an idea is something perceived, or is it something that you then also actually go and experiment and validate that there is a value there?
Yeah, so I mean, it does depend, doesn't it? Sometimes the value is clear. It's a clear customer outcome is achieved. but there could be a clear business value that is achieved. Sometimes it is harder to absolutely know, and you do need to test that out and get feedback and inform what you're doing with that feedback as well. So yeah, it's always a hard one, isn't it? Prioritization. That's
definitely.
There's many ways to do that.
That's something Moshe talks about.
Yeah, I kind of got into it talking about that stuff. Definitely, it's because it's hard, and because we always kind of struggle with that. I think we have to be more mindful about it and think about it more and see, what ways can help us to actually do it better.
I think some of the dangers that I sometimes see is that you go down too low at the priority. So you're prioritizing really small, almost feature level things as opposed to the bigger problems. Take both into account.
So how do you balance it? Do you have like some rule of thumbs to say, this is a level that we have to put in our roadmap, or this is a level that we have to accept ideas, or we maybe massage the ideas that will be in a certain level, or you don't do that because that's might be way too much work, or it might actually diffuse the importance of some other items?
Yeah, I try not to go too granular down to the low level features. I prefer to stay at the top level problems. What are the big problems that we're achieving, and prioritize those problems, those outcomes that we're trying to achieve at that higher level. Because if you prioritize the small things, you may end up disregarding
the bigger picture.
Good ideas that all add up to a really huge customer problem if you looked at it at the top level and give you some big value, but actually on an individual feature level, maybe that doesn't work. And I think you could get lost too much in prioritizing features over actual customer outcomes.
Yeah, and I really like it when you say you prioritize the problems and their outcomes and not the features, because that's really key here. And that's what we have to do sometimes when we get a feature request or idea from a client or from internal users, to translate that into what problem it's solving, rather than to keep it there as, they want a report.
What's the value in that feature?
Yeah, exactly. So that's how we get to the value. So tell us a bit about how, what type of roadmaps you're actually using, if you're using them in ProdPad.
Yeah, so we've got kind of two main products now. So we've got different levels of roadmaps. So we've got a product level roadmaps, and then we've got portfolio level roadmaps, which gives like an overview of everything. But within ProdPad, you can tailor the detail of what you show. So when I'm talking at a senior team level, I'm not showing them all of the ideas or features that are attached to like a particular problem on the roadmap. I'm showing them the big problem that we're solving. That's what they need to do. That's what they need to see. And that's I show them where we're prioritizing that. But when I'm starting to talk down at a team level, obviously we want to talk about what, really involved underneath that. So it allows you to then uncover the more detailed bits. So I have different views, and you can save different views. You can even publish different views. So we've had it on our intranet that you can go straight to a view of our roadmap without having to come into ProdPad.
So when we're talking about roadmaps, I think this is a very heavy word, because people see it in different ways, especially the point of view you're coming from, and also your historical usage of ProdPad. So some people love them, some people hate them. But I think it's really based on what type of roadmap is it. So putting aside the discussion about, the level and who is exposed to that, you have the, standard Gantt chart kind of roadmaps with timelines and stuff like that. And then you have the more agile Kanban type of now, next, later. So what type are you using, and how does it work for you?
So I'm using a more agile type Kanban roadmap, very much outcome led, rather than like it's not a feature based roadmap. It's very much an outcome led roadmap. So you won't find any like dates or anything on this. We have project plans in Jira, we have release plans, but that's not what we use the roadmap for. This is a strategic document to communicate like the product vision and the product strategy. as opposed to, delivery. So it's at a different level and it's for different use. But I do understand other people very much go down the Gantt chart route and that kind of planning. But from how we use ProdPad, that's we prefer to have it at that Kanban style, now, next, later, very much outcome based.
Yeah. And then tell me a bit about your work with sales and marketing, because that's one of those things that always creates some stress and tension in organizations, where they really care about delivery and when things are going to be out there and stuff like that. How do you bridge that?
It's very true. You can never get away from that, can you? At some point, there needs to be a delivery date, and you have to appreciate that other departments, other functions need to know when things are coming. So the way we talk about that is that very much, if you look at our roadmap, so you've got the now column, that is stuff that we are working on and we're expecting to deliver within probably 6 weeks or so, maximum a few sprints, really. So the way I get around that really is I don't use the roadmap to necessarily communicate those dates, but we have constant communication between the teams so that they know that anything in this particular column is coming soon. So we are talking about it. We are, keeping them up to date with deliveries and delivery dates and when they're expected, so that we can really help them through, what they need to do, the marketing collateral, the go-to-market planning.
Mm-hmm. No, it does. And that's where when we work collaboratively with them, we are able to, using the same vision and same strategy and getting into the same goals, although from their perspective, they need to know when things are coming and they need to know what they can sell or what they can, what collaterals they have to create for something or whatever it is, or help us with the go-to-market strategy. Then it definitely, we need to have empathy to that, to their roles. So I think at the end of the day, it's really a lot about collaboration between everyone.
It is, absolutely. And I think, the roadmap isn't the only way to do that. And I think it's not a substitute for having that conversation with the teams and making sure that they are understanding when things are coming. Because as you say, they need to plan their time and we need to understand that they have an incredibly important role in the success of what we're doing. So we need to help them out.
And that's a really good point, because in some organizations, the roadmap is like the collaboration between different departments. And when that's the focus, then it definitely doesn't work. So just let's switch gears a bit back to ProdPad. What are like the best features of the product that you really, really like?
So there's probably 3 features which I find really useful. So, and we touched on it briefly, but the fact that you can easily add ideas and separately feedback into the system, and anyone in your organization can do that simply with, there's no training needed. There's no real explanation needed. So it's so open to everyone to collaborate and add their ideas into systems, without training or any barriers. It's really, that's probably the top feature for me, is that ease of use, because as I say, it removes the barriers to getting those good ideas and you don't want to miss out on those. So that's probably the top one. The roadmap management, definitely, clearly, it's a roadmap tool. It's very easy to do. It's very easy to manage and maneuver. You're not spending your time working the tool, which is, I'd prefer to spend time actually
definitely
doing the job than trying to make it look great. And ProdPad allows you to very quickly do that. And then the other feature which I really like is the integration. So you can integrate it to other tools. And we use Jira at Tillo. That's where the development team have their approved work. That's where they're working. And if it didn't have that integration, that would involve a lot of duplication of things as we move things along through the journey. But it's got an integration with Jira, which means that once we've defined the ideas and written the stories and we've talked about it and we know what we want to do, you can simply push that into the relevant queue in Jira, and life goes on. Products get released. It's great.
That's great to hear.
Do you know if they have other integrations? Like I know Matt always interested to hear about data analytics and stuff like that.
They have integrations. Yeah. We have used. I mean, it's integrated with Slack. That's the ones we used. We did used to use Trello on occasion for a few things, and it integrates with Trello as well. But there's lots of other things that it integrates with that we don't use. Maybe we could, but yeah, it's got plenty of different integrations available.
Well, it's great that it's using Jira. I know that's a big relief for everyone in your organization.
It is. It certainly wouldn't be as well received if otherwise.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it's almost like the golden standard these days.
Yeah, it's almost a must-have. In order to really be successful and automate a lot of this work.
Yeah. Although not everyone is using Jira, so
that's true. That's true. That's true.
I'm not using Jira.
You're one of those. You're one of those for sure.
I'm not one of those these days. Yeah, I used Jira many years, but these days I'm using Azure. What about the least favorite features? Do you have something that you really don't like, or you think that they should do better?
That's a really tough question. I'm not sure there's anything.
Yeah, you can say no.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's anything particularly that stands out as a worst feature. No,
that's good. Mm-hmm. Do they have a platform where if you have ideas for improvement in their product, like a Slack channel or some community around ProdPad where you could implement ideas of your own to make it better?
Yeah, they do. They've got a Slack channel which is really good. Actually, it's one place that you can go for support of all kind. Really, you can go there to if you're having a problem using ProdPad, or if you have a suggestion that you want to put forward for future iterations of ProdPad. But also it's got a community of other product managers on there that quite often I see, and I've used it myself. Quite often you're having a general problem. It's not related to the ProdPad itself, but you're having a general problem that you want to run past some people in the product community, and everyone seems to be very helpful on there. And it's a good tool to have sometimes to have some people to talk to.
A sounding board.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really useful community to have access to.
Yeah, and we also know as product managers that we should always try to use our product, because this way we learn how to, what the pains of the users are. So I'm sure they're using their own product with their integrations for all the feedbacks that they get into ProdPad.
Yeah, I'm sure of it.
That makes so much sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And how is the company, ProdPad as a company? Do you have other than the Slack channel? Do you have other type of interactions with them? And do you feel that they are obsessed about you as the client?
I would say definitely, yeah. They're one thing, they're constantly releasing updates, which is always a good sign that they're looking to improve and change things. But in terms of, they do, walk the walk. They're always seeking feedback from, their customers. They're always talking to customers. I've been on plenty of user testing sessions with them when they're looking to try out new features and look at, how they could improve and change the product. And they're always very receptive to feedback, and they follow up on that feedback. So yeah, I would say they absolutely are obsessed, let's say, with their users and helping their users succeed.
It's always great to hear about the company.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of goes into, I'm wondering how you had already had prior experience with ProdPad, but how did the implementation go even previously at your previous work? How was the implementation? And then maybe a second question is, what is the learning curve like if you're getting used to ProdPad? How would you experience that?
So the implementation is like really simple. There's not really anything that you need to do. Once you've signed up, it's really much your get in there and go. So in terms of implementing, it's more about educating the company as to where this new tool sits, right? So you're integrating a new tool into the system, And that's more of the challenge, I think, but generally for any new tool that you're adding. So that was my challenge. I had to educate the company that how this now fitted into the process. And, remember I was the first product hire at Tillo. So actually I was kind of educating them on what product management was in general at that point. So that was the big challenge. And I found the most effective way to do that was to draw out, where product management sits and how some of the flows work. Like, how do I add ideas? How does that idea then get managed all the way through to actually being either on the roadmap and then into a developer's backlog? So I drew that out, and I drew where the different systems were, and that helped educate the company as to what this was and why it would add value. That's how I implemented it. In terms of the learning curve, I mean, it's really simple to get going. It allows, one of the things actually I should have said earlier, one of the simple things that they allow is if you've already got a list of ideas in a format in a different system, if you can get that into Excel quickly, you can upload that into ProdPad, and that's how we started off. So we managed to get those ideas in very quickly. You can very quickly then start tagging these, putting workflows together, creating your roadmap. You can be up and running very, very quickly. But also, there is complexity that you can add, but you can add that in time. You don't need to do that straight away. And the more you're in there, the more you can work at it. But to get value, you can get value pretty quickly out of it.
That's great to hear, that you can solve problems immediately, but they don't have to be everything, and you can build slowly. I love what you did, where you came in, you took a bunch of ideas and a bunch of things that were spread out over the organization and brought them all into one platform. I think that's a great use of the tool.
Yeah, and it's always also interesting to hear from people, especially when product has lots of different features. What was the main focus that made them look for a product, and then how it expands to other things. So that's really neat to hear. And by the way, I just checked, and they do have integration with Azure DevOps. So
there you go. Okay, that's good. You're in business now, so
yeah, I'm business. No, I'm not. I'm not in the market myself right now. But if anyone is interested, so these podcasts, we're really enjoying doing it as a service to the community. But we can never cover all the features and everything that these products have, and also it's just limited to a specific point of view. In this case, it's Eddie's experience, which seems to be great. It seems that Eddie, you seem to love this product, so that's a good thing. But there is always more stuff, so we encourage people to look at the website, get the free trial, test those products, and make their own decisions. But we hope we were helping with that.
I hope I've helped.
Definitely. Matt, do you have any other questions for Eddie?
Not off the top of my head. I like to talk around the integrations. Jira was one of the things. The more and more we've looked at these tools, the more important integrations have become. As long as these tools are able to talk to each other, it not only makes the work of the team better, but the organization in general. So I did have a question. So you do have a portfolio roadmap, and then you have another product roadmap. Do you manage both of those roadmaps and from a product organization, or do they manage like individual teams, or is it just everybody handles both of those?
It's pretty new actually in terms of our second product line. So it's probably a bit too early to tell of how I will manage that going forward. But at the moment, that sits at my level. But over time, I will push those down to the individual PMs that are on that product.
Okay, sounds good. And it doesn't sound like any kind of data analytics goes along with this. I think that's kind of doesn't seem like a big focus in the road mapping. I do like the fact that there is some recommendations coming in when you're entering ideas.
Yeah.
That it is doing recommendations. So it is doing some analytics behind the scene. So
it is doing, and they've got some new features that are in beta at the moment around feedback, that it's actually looking at, what the feedback is and suggesting, themes that are popping up to kind of take the legwork out of, reviewing feedback yourselves, which is quite interesting to see. So I'm excited to see where they take that.
Okay, that sounds great. So there is some analytics probably going on behind the scenes, and it's definitely something, an area they're maturing in. So
I think so, yeah.
I look forward to hearing more about that at some point down the road.
That will be interesting to see how these products are evolving in the time, because they do have also to find some competitive edge in this market, because there are quite a bit of them. So that will be really interesting. Yeah,
you have to differentiate yourself at some point, kind of stand out in a very crowded group of other tools. So
exactly,
it's interesting. It's interesting to hear how even we heard that in previous series where some were going more general, some were going more specialized. So it's interesting to hear how these tools are doing that for sure. Well, Eddie, thank you so much for joining the show. That's all the questions I have. Moshe, do you have any others?
No, just where can people find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn, and I am on Twitter, although I'm a very infrequent tweeter. So LinkedIn is probably the best place to find me.
Okay, perfect.
Well, thanks again for joining the show. This has been very helpful and hopefully helpful to the listeners. And appreciate you coming on the show and educating Moshe and I on ProdPad.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Eddie.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to Product for Product, and we'll check you next time.